And the guys can take it forward. Thank you.
I was very interested by a throwaway comment that you made earlier, Anibal, about how when the money fails, it affects absolutely everything, and the short-termism that comes in. And you specifically said education, that schools. Could you say a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, but because, you know, when fiat money fails, it starts affecting the first thing that we notice is like inflation, no? That the money starts losing its purchasing power, but then it's like a chain reaction, you know, that just happened after that. Like it's education systems, health systems, and in the terms of education, for example, like I experienced in my hometown. I am from a small city in Venezuela that is called Mérida, from the west. It's like a small city with a big university. So what is happening is like all these educators, professors, teachers were receiving like, obviously, the salary lost total went to the floor because of the devaluation of the money, because how low? For example, right now a university professor earns like 20 quid per month. This is the salary.
£20?
Yeah, 20 pounds. 20 pounds. This is the official salary. No more than 40 quids per month is nothing. So it's a chain reaction because the money lost its value, and then the governments, the regimes, the authorities, the monetary authorities implement like a lot of regulations. They can sustain, because for example in Venezuela the main thing that they were printing a lot of money, you know, like quantitative easing, and these redenominations removing zero, but with each redenomination they need to print new bills, new money, different names. In the terms of the education, that is happening. So also affects education in the way, like for example, many of the professional or the people that got like a bachelor degree, for example, like me, the people decided to leave the country, you know. Yeah. So all this talent flies around the world. For example, it's quite common because in Venezuela we have like a big history that we like to study, you know. We like to study, for example, in my friendship circle, I will say like 80% of my friends are engineers. I don't know, you can find that here easily, you know. But in Venezuela, we get to do that because in the past we have free education. It was good, like 15 years ago. So, but all these people is living all around the world. So, and the people that remain is also how Ariel was saying, similar to what Perón did, is a lot of propaganda, government propaganda. The regime, in the case of Venezuela, implement his own education system. They took over the schools and all the public education system. Only few university remains like total unreachable for the government because they have like a kind of sovereignty, something like that. But that is the main thing, like because the salaries, the talent leave Venezuela, and the government implement his own propaganda to try to people not to notice what is happening, but it's almost impossible because when you go to the streets, you see many things that are happening. When you try to buy things, it's so different. In Venezuela, we don't have Amazon, we don't have Uber, that doesn't exist there. Also because they impose this exchange control, so maybe it's similar in Argentina. We can exchange bolívares for euros in our banks or for USD, because the only person that have access to that is basically is the people in power, the government, something like that. Yeah.
Does anyone else have questions for the panel?
It just comes to mind the YouTube video like 9 quid for 2 ice cream.
I've got an interesting comment on this education thing, right? So for those of you who don't know me, you might know that like recently I had quite a visceral experience where I was hacked and I lost all my Bitcoin, right? But yeah, it was pretty savage. But interestingly, before that, Bitcoin had set me free in terms of wealth and not having to worry about money so much anymore. So what I started last year, weirdly enough, was since I was young, I really fancied getting into woodworking. Right? And because I didn't have to pursue money so much, I thought, right, I'm going to finally go and get myself some tools. I'm going to learn how to make beautiful, bespoke furniture with wood just for pleasure. So I start looking around and going, where can I learn woodworking, right, in Scotland? There must be a place where someone can teach me this, right? I can learn on YouTube, but it'd be nice, an old guy, carpenter, done it for 20 years, teaches me. So I looked around. The best options that I could find to get educated in how to fix things was, in Edinburgh there was a course that you could sign up for, but it was 20 grand a year, right? So I was like, I'd done well at Bitcoin. I was pretty early before I got ripped off, right? So I thought about it, but thought, it's a bit rich for my blood. So I looked around, and what I found was a local college. So there's Dundee and Angus College. Oh boy, could I tell you some stories about this place, right? Imagine being in your mid-30s, right, trying to learn woodworking just for pleasure, and you're surrounded by guys that have just left school and are just trying to find a way to start their career. Oh boy, I got to see right behind the curtain, and let me tell you, it's terrifying, right? Let me tell you a few little stories, and I've got so many, but I'll tell you a few of the most heinous ones, right? The first one is that in this course that lasted a year, a full-time course was only 2 days per week. Alongside the woodworking, and I suppose this made sense, they tried to give you sort of a rounded education, so how to do a bit of communication, how to do a little bit of IT and stuff. The IT course was so shockingly poor, it's laughable. In a whole year's course, right, they taught us how to take a screenshot and then paste that into a Word document. They also showed us how to use Microsoft Excel and fill in a timesheet. So I did 20 hours at $5 an hour, I made $100. And then we filled out like a multiple choice question, 10 questions. That was the ICT course. I wish I was exaggerating, right? The reason I know that this was the whole IT course is I said to them, I know a little bit about IT, so can you just give me the work early and I'll finish it fast so I can spend my time elsewhere. I'm not being hyperbolic. 45 minutes it took me to complete a year's worth of ICT training at the local college. So the quality is abysmal, right? I can't stress that enough. It's shocking. And the kids that are going in, they want to start their lives. They want to gain some skills. They want to progress their lives, and woodworking appeals to them. But the incentives are all completely wonky, right? So since I've been on this course, the teachers who teach at this place had, I think, roughly 6 or 7 days where they went on strike, right? Because they want more pay. Now, what's interesting about that is if you think about a 2-day-a-week course, 7 days, right? We're starting to lose weeks and weeks and weeks of potential education for these kids. So I got a little bit interested, right? I started doing some digging, thinking, this is crazy. So I wanted to know, well, what are your demands? If you're going on strike, what are your demands? and I learned that these guys had actually already turned down a 17% pay rise, right? That wasn't enough. And these teachers, by the way, as I understand it through a bit of research, they're earning somewhere in the region of £40,000 per annum, right? Now, £40,000 an annum to teach an ICT course that contains screenshots, filling in a few cells in an Excel spreadsheet is a joke. By the way, the leader, go on.
Just 2 days or 5 days?
I don't know exactly if they're taking multiple classes, but guess who the head of the union is? The head of the union that rallies up all the other teachers to not do any work and demand more money is the woman who teaches the ICT class. Let me tell you something else about this ICT class, right? It's really bad. On the first day that we went into that class to learn it, she said, well, look, we would be in the computer room, but I refuse to walk up 2 flights of stairs to go to the computer room, and I won't get in the lift because I think it's a bit dodgy. So actually, I'm going to send all of you to go and collect a laptop from the library and bring it back to the classroom. And then she added to that, she said, they might run out of battery because you can't take the battery packs, but if that happens, we'll just leave class early. Unreal. And then I've seen this same woman stand in front of the whole class and joke about the strike day, going, oh, well, it's great for me because it's basically a day off. It's unbelievable. And on those strike days, I would walk past these teachers who were stood outside the college waving a few flags going on strike. By 10 a.m. when I came out for a break, they've already gone. They've already gone home. So, look, you know, the state of affairs here is, well, number one, if you've got any woodworking needs at your house, may I suggest that you take care of that now, because there won't be a new generation of carpenters and woodworkers that learn anything. In a whole year, I've fixed a door and I've made a birdhouse. I'm not joking when I say this entire course could have been completed in 4 or 5 weeks. It's generally laughable. So, look, you know, I've not experienced hyperinflation like you guys have, but you can already see the cracks in the fabric of society, how all these wonky incentives mean no one wants to put any work in, there's no quality. And the kids, oh my God, I'm just going to say it, right, because we need to talk about this, right? I would say almost 80% of the kids on this class every weekend are going out and partying and taking lots of drugs. And for anyone who doesn't know, who's not from Scotland, we are the drugs capital of Europe. Yeah. We're a very small country. All of these kids are going out on the weekend, they're taking ketamine, cocaine, like stuff you would not believe. And the reason for that is, I don't think they understand it, but they know that they're playing a game that they can't win. They say it, you hear them say, oh, well, I'll never be able to afford a house, so that's why I don't save. And I mean, whether they understand it or not, even if they did save their money, they save it for 5 years, lose half of their value. Sod it, you may as well YOLO, and that's what they're doing, right? So yeah, I mean, I would expect education to get worse.
Thank you, that was horrifying.
We're going the way of Argentina.
Yeah.
Is that what you saw in Argentina? Because I wanted to ask you about the impact on the social layer and of the domestic, of how families, how children change in that kind of a hyperinflationary environment.
Sure. It's really, I mean, I got this idea from Saifeddin, I guess. You've read the Beacon Standard?
Yeah.
So it really surprised me how he compared, well, of course, architecture, but also relationships, like, so human relationships and love. Yeah, the quality of the money you live in, right, the society you live in, really shapes you, who you are as a being. So I would say in the extreme, perhaps you can correct me or not, this will sound nice, but in a country like Cuba, perhaps Venezuela, where you're making $30 per month, that's when you only think about today, like, how do I survive today, right? And women turn into prostitutes and prostitution, and men go into gambling or alcohol, whatever, right? I don't know if you have any opinion on that.
Yeah, it's like, mainly it's that way, like, people is just trying to survive. There is no, like, hope in the horizon. So this is my day, I have to pass this day and see what is happening the next day. And if I find something to do today that generate a bit more of income, maybe I will take it. So it's no a moral thing, it's not an ethical thing, it's just survival instinct. So yeah, that is when you see the world size of human, but it's because there are no options. There are no more options to do. If you have a couple of children waiting at home for a piece of love, what do you have to do something, you know? Yeah.
That's right. So, yeah, I mean, Europe, UK, United States, it's all in a slow decline. I mean, the US dollar has lost over 99% of its purchasing power, the pound most likely as well, right? Or worse. Now it's picking up a little bit more speed. Like when you had the inflation during COVID times, would any one of you dare guess how much inflation for you is right now this year in the UK or Scotland?
I don't know what they're reporting it as.
CPI or real inflation?
Yeah.
I'm asking the real inflation.
18%.
Yes, I
The
think
like trueflation, yeah.
I read when I was coming on the bus, like the official is 3.4%.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3.4%, which is madness when you look at what you're actually paying for things that you actually need. I think in the US, I just read that because the cost of coffee beans has gone up by almost 80% in the past few months. Coffee has been removed from the basket of goods on which
Yep.
Inflation is calculated.
They always do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's called hedonic, something, yeah.
It becomes, and again, this struck me particularly in the past few years, and the madness of the whole COVID thing was how figures and statistics were so utterly unreliable, and how a lot of the time, not only do we not understand things like relative and absolute risk, which is fundamental, all of the other economic underpinnings, the calculations on which these grave-suited people who run our lives justify the decisions that they make are absolute fantasy. It's the Wolf of Wall Street. It's numbers, Fugazi. Right, we are.
I've just told the kitchen that we'll be coming in like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So
Thank you.
maybe you have last question.
Yeah. Would anyone have a question that they would like to ask the panel? Gary?
So obviously we've had this kind of 10% inflation-ish in the UK over the past couple of years, and that's really different to what you guys have experienced in your country. But what would you say is maybe that first thing that the people really, what really makes the penny drop for them? What, in your experience, that is the difference between what we're experiencing and what you've kind of shown on the screen today?
What do you mean by penny drop?
Like, do they
The moment of
understand what's
realisation.
happened, or when do they
what is it that makes
realise?
them realise that it's something that you should take to the street for?
Well, in the case of Argentina, I mean, because my life experience is really curious in this regard. I find it fascinating that some part of the population have known all throughout the years that this is because of money printing. But what the government does, and they will do here, and Biden is doing right now in the US, they will start to tell, no, the culprit is the business, right? So it's the supermarket that is the bad guy, that is
The private sector.
the private sector is the culprit that is bringing up the prices, right? So some part of the population believe it, and so they create a hate between groups of people. So the poor start hating the businessmen, and so on. Also for me it's fascinating, like they somewhat forgot the 90s, So they had 10 years of 0% inflation, and they forgot about it, right? And the government and the universities and the media say it's because the businesses are greedy. So the question is, they weren't greedy during the 90s, right? Or they're not greedy in Chile, next door, right? That has no inflation. And we should really fix it. Whatever. So we're really soft. But Milei acts like, no, you're a thief, right? You're a socialist scumbag. Like, so if you really think that the socialist is stealing from you, or the central banker is stealing from you, or whatever, why treat him nicely, right? I mean, he's a thief. So he was like this, right? Really turn on, and you could see it. Like, you could watch an interview of Milei debating somebody. You could watch it on mute, and you would say, "Oh, he's winning, right?" And the other person is losing. And that really caught the attention of the young people, right? It became their idol. So, yeah, they started a following, and he became a populist, right? A libertarian populist.
And what would you say, what percentage of the population now get it, do you think? Well,
now, we were also discussing this with Anibal. In Argentina, Venezuela, in the families, and when you watch the news or the TV, 70% of all the content is about politics and economics, right? Everybody talks about economics and politics all day, right?
If we do an analogy with here, for example, in the UK, everybody is talking about the weather every time. In Venezuela, South America, Argentina, we are always talking about politics. What is happening? What could happen?
So now, yes, you might. This is really hilarious, but the scripts are in Spanish. So there is like opposition media from the previous government, and when they see somebody that might look like leftist or socialist, they approach him to ask them, "How's Milei? How are you experiencing life now with Milei, right?" And some of them stop and say, no, we really need to cut down the deficit and close the central bank, right? Because the money printing. So yeah, it's fascinating how Milei managed to get the taxi driver to be able to explain that we need to close the central bank. So it's fascinating.
But is your answer, therefore, that things have to get a lot worse before we open our eyes?
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah. And on that cheery note, let's go and have some lunch and come back here, say at 1:45 in half an hour.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.